Hello, good day, and welcome to the Phil Garris Show. Yesterday, we learned that Paul Ryan cast his vote for Donald J. Trump. Today's show is called Paul Ryan Turns to the Dark Side. So hang on to your handlebars and tighten your seatbelt because this show is going to rock and roll.
Educational, informative, controversial content to keep you free. This is the Radio for Freedom Network, featuring The Phil Garris Show, broadcasting from the city beautiful Orlando, Florida.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We're going to get right into it. Yesterday, we learned that Paul Ryan voted for Donald J. Trump. Today's a sad day for America because Paul Ryan has turned to the dark side by voting for Donald J. Trump, plunging the GOP into the darkness. This darkness is a wink and a nod towards racism, radical authoritarianism, and human rights against women and minorities. This is an outrageous situation. Paul Ryan, the 54th current Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, has normally ran on a family's value platform talking about family values and faith. I wonder how Paul Ryan is going to face his daughter and his wife and explain why he voted for a man that brags about groping women. I don't know if Paul Ryan has ever heard of a man called George Wallace. Donald Trump reminds me of George Wallace. George Wallace was a stone-cold racist, and Donald Trump reminds me exactly of George Wallace, who ran for office in 1968. But Paul Ryan was born in 1970. I'm a little bit older than Paul Ryan, and I remember George Wallace very well. And I can remember the vinegar this man would spew against people of color. And it certainly left a bad taste in my mouth and reminds me of Donald J. Trump. Another person Donald J. Trump reminds me of is Adolf Hitler. We know what Adolf Hitler did, but if you ever watch a speech by Donald Trump and a speech by Adolf Hitler would start off slow and work the audience up in a frenzy. As he worked the audience up in a frenzy, Adolf Hitler would start flailing his hands all in the air and raising his voice and working the crowd up into a hysteria. Donald Trump does the same thing. Watch Donald Trump next time he gives a speech. He'll use his hands, he'll work the audience up into a frenzy just like Adolf Hitler did. Another similarity is the state of the economy of Germany. When Adolf Hitler was running for office, Germany was coming out of a recession, and this recession bypassed a lot of people in Germany who were desperate, that were looking for an authoritarian figure to make things right in their life. Today we have a similar problem. We have an administration that has failed the middle-class people of the United States, and this current administration has only concentrated wealth and bypassed the middle class and people in rural America. People have a hard time getting jobs and making ends meet. Also, college students are graduating from college with an astronomical debt, unable to find jobs. The United States middle class is in a terrible situation because of this administration. In a lot of ways, this administration and this administration's handling of the economy has created an environment for a person like Donald Trump, just like an environment was created for Adolf Hitler in the 30s. Donald Trump is a charismatic leader and a charismatic speaker, just like Adolf Hitler, that expounds authoritarian, strong rule of law with an iron fist. A lot of people that are desperate will think this is the way to go. I can tell you this is not the way to go. This only leads to tyranny and leads to the alienation of your basic civil rights. Donald Trump has often spoke of other tyrants and other dictators in glowing terms like Putin and Hussein, who have done nothing for their people but cast misery and death. In a lot of ways, Trump is a reflection of our ills in society, a shrinking middle class, a concentration of wealth that is not distributed and has not entered the circular flow of money to provide jobs and income for people. The expanded low-wage jobs and the loss of manufacturing and the loss of businesses leaving the United States because of overregulation and overtaxation. And also, people are feeling left out because this administration has had an elitist attitude, and this has alienated people. And this elitist attitude has forced people to look for another type of leadership. Trump is like Hitler because of his radical authoritarian behavior. Ranting and raving is not part of a decent democracy. In our country, we no longer have statesmen. We have candidates screaming and yelling at each other and saying terrible things. My question is, why would the GOP entrust a presidential authoritarian candidate that is similar to Hitler and George Wallace? And also, why would conservatives entrust a person that could be a threat to their political power? Donald Trump is not a conservative. Donald Trump is a tyrant, and he's a threat to all conservatives. Like Ronald Reagan said, the heart and soul of conservatism is in libertarianism, and Donald Trump is the farthest thing in the world from libertarianism. He's not a conservative, he's not a liberal, he's not a progressive, and he's certainly not a libertarian. He's a tyrant with a personal agenda that wants to violate your constitutional rights, and violate the rights of women, and violate the rights of people of color. My question is, early on, when conservatives in the Republican Party was getting a feel on how this situation was going to go with Donald Trump, when they realized that he was going to be their nominee, and they were unable to stop him, why didn't the leadership in the GOP band behind a third party or third-party candidate that shares their values? Gary Johnson and Bill Weld shares more of the conservative values than Donald Trump does. Gary Johnson and Bill Weld are certainly kind to people of color and certainly respectful of women. But however, for some odd reason, Paul Ryan thought it was appropriate to vote for Donald Trump. This is a flag for other people in the GOP to follow suit and also vote for Donald Trump. Any Republican who endorses and votes for Donald Trump, like Paul Ryan, will find themselves on the wrong side of history, because this tyrant will lose by a landslide and will have a referendum against tyranny. I am not a Democrat, and I am not a Republican, and I did not vote for Donald J. Trump, and I did not vote for Hillary Clinton. But I can tell you what, I don't want Donald J. Trump to be the president of the United States and plunge us into tyranny and darkness. The GOP is going down a dark hole, and the GOP will find itself at the bottom of this hole without a party and without support. This spells the end for the GOP. Thank you for listening to the Phil Garris Show, and have a good day. You can find us on the Radio for Freedom Network, on radioforfreedom.com. We are throughout the internet on most radio platforms like Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes. Just Google us and you'll find us all over the internet. Thank you for listening to the Phil Garris Show, and have a good day, and remember to vote.